Good afternoon, morning, evening. I'm not sure what time zone you folks are in. It's good afternoon for me. I'm Els van Vessem, as you probably read on the screen, and I'm gonna show you some stuff on how to make reports on data in Azure DevOps. So it's basically data about data. I'm gonna focus on work items and I'm gonna focus on pipelines, but the stuff I'm telling you, I'll mention what is applicable to what exactly. Let's talk about me a bit first. I'm Els van Vessem. My pronouns are they, them. I'm from the Netherlands, which you might have heard already. I actually have a master's in psychology and gender studies, so you might have seen me talk about gender before. You might have seen me talk about mental health before, but I secretly also do tech things. So I'm going to talk about tech today. I've been into IT, working in IT for quite some time, for 12 years now, and I've been doing data for about 6, 7 years. I started mostly in an on-premise world, so I did like SSRS, SSIS, Power BI, SQL. I've did that in healthcare. I now do it in government. I work for the Dutch House of Representatives. We're a bit old school. We're slowly moving to the cloud, but it's slow. And that was the same case in healthcare. So that's why I'm mostly stuck on-premise and hybrid environments. I'm also a Scrum Master these days, and while I've done some project lead stuff, I've done some Scrum Mastering without being officially a Scrum Master. So I like my work items. I like to structure my work and the work of my team in a way that works for us, not to be stuck in a system, but do it in a way that is useful for us. And it also means you want reports. If you want to find me after, you can find me on Blue Sky, Geeking the Thing. You can find me on LinkedIn, just my name. You can email me if you really want to. elsvanvessem@gmail.com. And you can also message me on LinkedIn. You can send DMs on Blue Sky these days, and it's not open beta anymore, so you can just sign up. So that's me, and let's get into the topic of today. Because we're basically just going to create some visualizations together. We're going to do it on the Azure DevOps dashboard. We're going to do it through the Azure DevOps connector that's automatically in Power BI. And we're even going to do some OData queries using the API of Azure DevOps. Because the main thing is we just want to get some insight in how our work items are doing, how our pipelines are doing. And there's some things that we want to know, like if we're working on a project, we want to know how much work items open and closed, basically the basics, like what did we do, and maybe over what time frame did we do, who did the things. Maybe you work in sprints, so you want to know in what iteration did we do how many things. You might want to know the velocity. Maybe we'll get into burn down charts, depending a bit on the time. And if you have pipelines and they run, you want to know if they actually run, and what is the current status? What is the status over time? Is the one pipeline going faster than the other pipeline, etc. So I'm going to move you over to my Azure DevOps thing. And this is a project I created myself. It's a private project. Because I work for the government, I can't show you my work stuff. And I basically, if you've met me, you probably know that I read a whole lot of books. I read about 50 to 100 books a year. I have a physical library of 750 books. And I thought, let's, create a project on that, because I really want to read for the Hugo Awards. It's basically a science fiction fantasy award that'll happen a month from now, and I want to read the nominated books for the different categories, like the short stories and the novels. So I'm working on that. As you can see, I've done well on the shorter stories. I still have to work on the longer ones. I have 750 books, so I have to organize my library. I have different categories. So I have my tech books, I have my English, my Dutch, my translated books. I have some feminism and gender studies books, and I want to have them organized in a proper way, usually by topic, by author. I also, somewhere in the future, I want to get some data from Storygraph, which is the app I use to record all my reading in. It's basically like Goodreads, but better, more visualization options in itself. But I think I can make better visualizations if they get an API. I don't think they have it yet, but that's something I want to do in the future. So that's just a bit on the project that I just created to show you some stuff on how to create reportings on it. Well, as you know, it's Microsoft, right? So there's a million ways of doing things. I'm going to show you some ways of doing things. I'm going to show you multiple strategies, but it might be you know a better way or you know a different way of to show multiple things. And please share that in the meeting, in the Teams chat, or ask a question about it, so we can learn from one another, because I don't know everything, especially on topics like this, which, like I said, there's a million ways of doing things, and I'll just show you how I go about this. For example, well, you can click on analytics and see that my velocity is not the best, and you can have like the cumulative flow diagram to see how the work items are going. The screen size might not be the best, and I'm sorry about that. You can see what I've done over the last 30 days or over the last 60 days, and we now have it on the epic level, and under epics are issues, and then you see that I've done a bit, and I also have to do a whole lot more. So this is one of the automatic reporting tools, visualizations that happens in Azure DevOps. You have that for most of the different kind of views you can have of the reporting tools. But what I want to show you today is the dashboard. You might have seen that yourself already. You can create widgets on your dashboard. And let's go back to our questions, right? We want to look a bit into our work items. So we want to add a widget. We want to add a widget on work items. So you search in the search bar, you say, hey, I want to have a chart for work items. I add it, and I configure it with the little, there's probably a good English word, and the English word completely leaves me now. We want to have a chart for the work items, and we have to select a query. Where are we going to find the queries? That's completely somewhere else, because you first have to, like in this case, for these kinds of visualizations, you first have to select the data you want to select, right? So, and that's somewhere completely different. It's near the boards and near the queries. It's basically a place where you can create a query in a very visual way to create a selection of data. So for example, at my job, I've created a query to check which work items don't have a parent. And that's not because it's very sad if they don't have a parent and if they're orphaned, but it's mostly because I want every work item to be connected to either a feature or an epic. And I don't want any leftover items, so we'll forget like the issue we have or the bug we have to fix. So I regularly check, like every week, every sprint, I check, hey, are there any orphaned work items? That's something you can very easily do. You can say like, hey, is there a parent? You look for the P. Is there a parent? And then you say no, and then you find all the work items that don't have a parent, because basically all the different fields you have in all the work items in Azure DevOps you can find in here. So, but in this case, I just want all work items, because I want to have a query over all work items. And you see here, you click run, and you see a list of all the queries. And I want to save the query, and this is important. If you want to use the query to create like a visual, and because it's in dashboards, it's usually visible for everyone, you have to save it to the shared queries and not to my queries. Then you get lost in it. So it's reporting on Azure DevOps, and I'll save it. You see the name over there. If we now go back to our dashboard, then I can now select this one. And you can set some options, right? I won't create a pie chart. People like Gooverbeek will be pissed at me if I use a pie chart. Let's go for a bar chart. Bar chart seems fun. And we wanted to see who was doing the work. So we want to group it by assigned to, and immediately you see how it went. Like most of the items are assigned to me or assigned to no one. That's because it's my library. I have a cat, but she doesn't really do stuff. She sometimes climbs into the bookcase, and that's all she's doing. And well, this is my item, and I'm done editing. And here I have, you can see how the items are divided over people. Maybe you want more though, right? We also want to see how things were shown over iteration or over time. Okay, let's see if we can do that. What we can do is copy this visual. You can go copy to dashboard. So you can also create different dashboards, but we just have one. I want to put it to the same dashboard, and then I get the same visual. I want to configure it again. I still want a bar chart. I want to group it. What did I want to group it by again? Oh yeah, over iteration. Hey, that means I don't have the option for iteration. Let's see what happens if I change my query, right? Because we have some options here, and the things you can select it on, like work item title assigned to state, that you see over here, those are the columns. And if I now go to column options, and I say I also want to see it over iteration path, and I'm going to get rid of tags because we're not using tags. You see we here have the iteration path. I gave the iteration paths names of famous authors. So let's get back to the visual. And it doesn't immediately work. Let's see if I can do this again. Bar chart assigned to. It doesn't want me to. Azure Devops bar chart assigned to. For some reason, it doesn't want me to show the iteration, which I'm not very happy about. Then it worked before. I'll tell you it worked before, but I think it might be because I changed the query halfway. It's still a bar chart, still assigned to. Well, let's just show the state of things. This is how much we have to do. This is how much we've done. This is how much we've been doing. And this is a good way. I'll show you the burn down chart because that is automatically including or can automatically include iterations. Let's edit it again. Let's go to the burn down chart. And we want to see the chart over several sprints, right? Because we want to see what we've done over the past few sprints. Automatically, it shows it over dates. And here, the fun thing is you don't have to select a query because it knows you want to see work items. It knows you want to see it over either dates or iterations. We're going to look at issues. We're doing a count of work items, and we want to burn down it. Want to show the plot burn down by date. This means you now have to select the iterations you want to show. And you have to do that by hand, the different categories. Showing some in the future as well. Save. So what you see is like it's a bit simple, right? And these seem very similar. And that's because you have to give a start date. So what I tend to do is I give a start date of the sprint before the first sprint I select. So as you see, I start with sprint 2, sprint 3, sprint 4. I know that the starting date of the first sprint is the 1st of June, and I started with 0. So here you can see I'm not doing much this month because I'm very busy with preparing for this talk. But this creates an overview of the different sprints, which of course shows way more if you have more work items going on, if you have more teams, etc. So the last thing I wanted to show you. Oh yeah, we're going to look at the work items over time. That's also a thing we can do. Let's since this is not the most useful, let's configure this, right? Let's see if we can create a different graph that sees a bit more. Let's go to a line chart. Line charts are always good if you look at time. And automatically it shows us the last 7 days. We can also make it the last 2 weeks, which makes it even a bit more clear. And we see how our items are doing over time. So you can see that I did some stuff in June. but it stayed the same. And at the beginning of July, I started doing a bit more. So the done line went up and the doing line went down. And finally, in the last few days, I finally have done more than what I was doing. This creates very conflicting sentences, but you see what's happening. Like, you see how the items are going over time. And again, of course, this is way more clear if you show more, if you have more people, if you have more work items. The last thing I'm going to show you here is the velocity chart, because that's just one of the easiest ones you have here. You look for velocity. I want to see how my team is doing. And you can very easily see over the last 3 sprints how the work is doing. You can see what we've completed. Sometimes you can see what you've completed late. That didn't happen. I did everything on time. And you can see what we've completed in the sprint and what is still incomplete. We're done editing. You see the velocities 3. Are there any questions on how you show things on work items in the dashboard itself? I'll check the chat. I hope I'll get a thingy, because what's the thing with showing these, showing this overview in Azure DevOps itself? The main problem is you can only see this if you're part of the team or if you're a stakeholder. So yes, you can see how stuff is going right now, which can be very handy, right? And you can see some history. And for example, here it will show the last few iterations. You could say I want to see the last 3 or the last 5 or etc. How long you want to look back in your past. But it's very current, and it's a very limited amount of people who can see this. And it's not very shareable. Yeah, you can make screenshots, but it's not not as shareable as reports in like other places are. And I see there are no questions. There's also no questions on the Mentimeter, which is a way you could ask questions if you wanted to. So we want more fancy things. We want more fancy things in life. So what will we do? We'll go to Power BI. Yes, we'll actually go to Power BI. If you want to report on work items, so just on the boards feature, you can get the data through a connector. So tend to go here to like get the bigger get data options. You look for Azure DevOps, and you see Azure DevOps boards only. It even says so in the title. I want to have to say what organization I'm in, and my organization is called Automate the Thing. And the team project is reporting on Azure DevOps. Can I still type? I can still type. And now we wait. So these are all the things that you can automatically get out of Azure DevOps. On bugs, issues, tasks, and work items, of course, if you have a more extensive workflow, work process, you also have those options for those kind of work items tickets. And you can see all history by month, the last 26 weeks, the last 30 days, or today. And basically what it does is a sort of snapshot. So if you look at the stuff from the last 26 weeks, it'll have made a snapshot every once a week. So you'll see the status of everything of that week. And that's also what we're going for, because we want, to look a bit back into the history, and we don't want just the last 30 days or just today, because that's something we could have seen in the dashboard view. The cool thing is, because this is made for like a Power BI like this, you don't really need to transform the data, especially if you know how it looks a bit. It's not really needed. It'll just load in. All the data types are correct. The thing I am not doing now, which is always like advised if you do Power BI stuff, is create a date table, because the date table that's included in there is only a hierarchy, which is not the best. But it's what we'll work with today. But if you would work with this in like a more professional capacity, get a date table. It'll make your life so much easier. So let's see. Let's start. we want to see how many work items we have. We have a count, and let's just do what we did before, right? Let's see how the work items are assigned. I think this is too small. I think the letters are too small. I'm going to see if I can always have. Ooh, that was what I wanted. The letters are still tiny. I am so sorry about that. I haven't practiced my zooming that much. Just believe me if I say this one is Els van Vessem, this one is blank for the work items, and it's over 60 and it's about 40. And this is different from what we saw before, right? And that is a bit of a problem. And that's because it does this snapshot thing. And now it counted all the items of the past 26 weeks every week. So that means instead of even if we just had one work item going, it will now say 26 because that one work item has been counted every week. So what you do then is that they created a column for that, and it's current. And we want to filter that just on this visual, and we only want to see what is current now. What is the current state of the work items? Now, Els van Vessem is said to have like a bit over 10. It's 11 work items, and the blank is on 6 work items. So this is the first thing. We already created that, of course, on the other side. I'll make it a bit smaller, and we know this is how the work items are doing. Okay. Oh. Over person over iteration over time. Okay, let's see how it goes over time. Let's move the date hierarchy here. No, wait, other way around. Delete. Let's start with the work item idea. And we want to see it over time. And we probably also want to see how the state is changing over time, like how many things are we doing? How many things have we done? And I want it to be that kind of chart, and I want this to go here so we can see the state, so we can see this was the case in 2024, I mean, and I'm going to go down completely, and now you see, I'll make it a bit bigger. You see how it went over time. Again, apologies for the tiny letters, but as you can see in the first week of June, this is the first week of June, we had a lot to do. We were doing a tiny bit, and we had done a bit more than a tiny bit. And over time that changed. The to-do column is getting smaller, and the doing and the done column is getting bigger. And as you can see, I haven't done much the last month, and that's because I was prepping for this talk. So this is how you see the change over time. And here we don't have to say just the recent, we don't have to look at the most recent items because we want to see how things change over time. And that's the cool thing about that they do that snapshot thing. It would, of course, be different if you show it like you need the different selection if you want to see it over the last 30 days or just the current state. So this is one easy way of showing the work items in Power BI through that connector. Is there something else you'd like to see surrounding this? Because I am assuming you know how to build Power BI dashboards. That's also why I'm not changing the name and the title, because I just want to show this is how to do this. To do the finicky things with either the colors or the texts or the titles. I assume you know how to do it, and you know how you would like that to look. Let's see if there's any questions, any suggestions, any other things. I know you now see me, but I hope you'll survive. Good. Then we're going to the last bit, we're going to look at our pipelines because we have 2 pipelines and they run sometimes. And we want to know, are the runs going fine? And we also want to show that in a reporting form, in a way of reporting it. And that's a thing we can most easily do through an OData query. And OData, it's basically an API, right? And APIs are relatively new to me, but I should have really seen the talk this morning. I'll probably rewatch it later, the talk from John on APIs. But APIs are basically queries you run at a source. And they work the OData type of API really works similar to writing queries. And I'm going to make this a bit bigger for you. Let's see. It should work, people. Why are you not doing what I want you to do? Why is this not? See, this is what I wanted. If you can't read, please tell me, and I'll see if I can make it even bigger. But please give feedback on the size, because it's hard to know on my screen if you can see it on your screen, etc. So if this is fine for you, good. If it's not, please give me a heads up and I'll see if I can make it even bigger. So you basically have your start is the link to where the data exists and what set of data there exists. So you have the analytics.dev.azure, you have the name of the project, or of the organization, which in this case is Automate the Thing. Then you have the project. Then you have the fact that it's OData and it's the preview. And for this test thingy, we're going to look at work items. You also have this like for test plans, for pipelines, etc. And this looks very similar to SQL, right? We want to select some stuff. So we want to select the work item, ID, the title, the type of the work item, the state, and the created date. And you can also do some fancy stuff. You can do like an order by, and you can show the top 10. And if you do this is Visual Studio Code. And if you are going to work with like OData, get the OData extension, the VS Code OData extension, because that'll make your life a whole lot easier, because then you get like fancy coloring. And also you can do this, right? You can go to the open screen and you can open your query. And now it says it doesn't represent a valid URL. That's interesting. Huh, why? You know this thing about live demos, right? Open. And now it works. Sometimes you just have to do it again. And you can see here that these are the work items in a sort of JSON, sort of an actual JSON format. So you have the ID, you have the title, you have the work item type, and you can look at the data, see if you could get the correct stuff. But this is not, you know, and I recognize all those items. You might have seen them as well, like the state and the date and the work item type and the title. This is not a report yet. You just see the data, and it's fun to know that it's the correct data. But you want to have it in your report. Then you do the following. You do the same thing, but instead of open, you do combine. And then you get the very pretty link that you can use to call the API through Power BI. So what I do is I select all. I put it under my copy paste, and I could do Control Z to get back to the actual query I wrote, because this is way more readable than this. But this is the way you need it if you want to put it in. This is the way you need it if you want to put it in the OData query feed. So I'm putting this under copy paste. I go back to my Power BI. We've created stuff on work items. And I'm going to create some more stuff on work items. I'm going to show you how this works. We go to get data. We go to OData feed. And then we wait. You have basic and advanced. In this case, you can just choose basic. And you copy paste the code, and then you press OK. And what you can see is, hey, that's the data I just saw in the web browser as well, but now in a pretty table form that you can do pretty things to. I'm going to cancel this one. This is not the one I'm going to show you. I'm going to also first going to show you something else, because you can't just, you know, do a select and get some stuff. You can do more complicated things. As you can see, you can use filters. So here we're actually looking at pipelines. Here's the website again, the analytics.azure.com, name of the organization, name of the project, OData version 3 preview. Oh, pipeline runs, because we want to look at the runs of the pipelines. And this is, we have a filter where we want everything after that's completed after the 1st of June. We want to see that over pipeline, and over that pipeline, we want to do an aggregate. We want to do a count, like what is the total count? We want to see how much succeeded, how much failed, how much partially succeeded, how much was canceled. And again, we want to see if we get the proper data out of it, right? So we go to the command screen and we say open. And then it just happens in your browser. What you see, we have 7 succeeded and 1 for the reporting on Azure Devops pipeline. And we have 1 failed, 6 succeeded, total is 7 on the reporting on Azure DevOps ×2. I'm not going to show you what's in these pipelines. It's just a basic pipeline that you can use to see if the pipeline actually works. So it didn't change anything. It just shows an hello world thing, basically. It was just to create a pipeline so I could show you how to report on pipelines. Because for my books, I don't necessarily need pipelines, except if I finally have their API working. So here you have some data, but this is aggregated data, which it shows so in the query. And I don't want to show aggregated data in my report. I want to be able to decide on the fly if I want to aggregate something. So I want the raw data. That's why I created this one, which is a very, very basic query again. Because I prefer to get my data as basic as possible so I can decide what to do with it later in the later in the line of work. So again, the website link, again, we're looking at pipeline runs, and we're just doing a select, and we're having the pipeline run ID, the queued date, the started date, the completed date, the run outcome, like, did it go well? What was the reason for the run? Like, did I do it? Was it a schedule? How long did the run take, and how long did the total duration, the waiting, and the run did it take? We also want to know what pipeline it is, and that's not in the same set. So we expand the pipeline. It's basically sort of a join. I hope I'm not offending anyone. You're expanding the pipeline to get the pipeline name, and not just like a number or etc. So let's see if we can combine this and put it into Power BI. I'm not sure why it does that, because it does it the second time. First, me and my computer, we should have a talk. We should have a good talk, because we have issues. I think I forgot to actually copy paste it. I'm sorry. So what I basically did is copy pasted the proper link I created, then did Control-Z to go to the last version. So I have a proper link going. So link is under my copy paste. And now I'm doing what I did a second ago. We go to get data. We go to the OData feed. We copy paste the feed. Bloop, 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 bloop. And we have all the data on the runs, right? Here we are going to check transform, because we have to transform a bit of the data, and we have to look at it a bit more closely. These are just normal numbers. Oh, the reasons, the outcomes, when did we queue it, when did we start it? That all looks like normal day times. These are normal numbers. Here we get something weird, right? That's that expand I was talking to you about, because as I could show you, if we just open it, you see that the pipeline and the pipeline name, you have to expand that a bit. That's why the command was expand, but it's not in the same table. Basically, it's in another table. So even in Power BI, we have to, how to properly say this in English. You have to get the extra record from the table. But in this case, it's relatively simple because it's just one level below, and it's just one term. So I don't want the original column name as prefix. I just want to have the pipeline name here. So you can see which pipeline it is, either the normal one or the ×2 one. And all the other things seem fine. I'm not really sure why it happens in this weird order, but you know, let's close and apply. Thank you. And we're waiting and it's loading. It's 14 rows. Let's create a new tab. Let's call it pipelines. And let's see what we can do with the pipelines. I still called it query 1, very proper name. So in our query 1, we have 2 pipelines, which you can't read, but there's the short name and the long name, which I hope you can see. It's the normal one, the ×2 one. Let's make this a filter. Yes. So we can, you know, see either both or one of them. Let's see if we can see how often things go wrong, because we want to know how often things go wrong. And I prefer if this moved. Yes. Let's have a pipeline run idea. Let's hope it does a count. It does a count. And as we can see, or as you can't see, but I can see, yes, oh, haha. As you can see, it has failed once, and most of the time it went completely fine. So I discovered how to make the letters bigger. Yeah, this is not very pretty though. We want to show that in a better way. Let's create a chart. You see that it succeeded more often than it failed, which is important, right? And but you know, we might just want to see what the latest status is. If I want to open my dashboard, I want to see, hey, are the pipelines doing well? How did the last pipeline go? You got lost on the OData query. That means you haven't seen what I did here, and I'm so sorry that I didn't see it. That's the problem with just having one screen when presenting. I created something very simple. So I made a little slicer. So I can see if I just want to see the first pipeline or the second pipeline. And I created a tiny chart, which just shows me how much success I had and how much things failed over time. And I just started telling you, I really want to see what is the most, how my most current run looks like. Because I want to open my report and see if I have to come into action now to fix my pipelines or not. Well, there's of course multiple ways to do this. Let's see. I want to go to my query 1 because of my fantastic naming capabilities. I want to see the outcome of my runs. I want to see the name of the pipeline, and I want to have that the other way around. No, I want to have it like this. And I want to know what date it is, and mostly what date it was completed. And I want, and now I have, of course, this whole visualization, this table on everything I've done, which is not the most handy because, like I said, I just want the most recent one. So I'm gonna filter this pipeline. I just want to know how it did on the normal pipeline. I'm gonna make this a tiny bit bigger for you all. And I want to see it on the I know the run ID is running up, so it started at 1 and it'll like add 1 every time, and I want to have the top one item on the pipeline run idea, and I want to have it on the maximum, and I apply the filter, and I get that the last one would run today did succeed. And if I would make this like for a production thingy, I probably copy paste it. Or I probably like make it pink or something, pink, green, red, whatever. Just a fancy color to see that I don't have anything to worry about. Probably wouldn't make it pink though. Come on, please move for me. Move. Why? Yes. And I just copy pasted it because copy pasting is my most favorite thing in the whole world. And I want to see it on the other pipeline as well. And then you see that the other pipeline also succeeded, which is lovely. And it also ran today. The name is just longer, so the thingy is longer. The visual is longer. So very basically, this is what you can do. You can create relatively easily. You can create these queries. You can pull in this data. What I really want to show you is the following, because there's so many sample reports. I can't make this bigger, and you might not be able to read it, but go to like just the Microsoft documentation on the Azure DevOps OData query, because on the board you can have all these sample reports on the bugs, on the release burn down, on the sprint burn down, on like the feature progress. You can do the same on like the test plans, the pipelines and the tests. There's so many sample reports that you can get the OData queries of, that you can play around with to see like what does give me the data that I want. So you have lots to like play off of. You don't have to create everything from scratch, which I think is very helpful if you're trying out a new thing. And you can either see how it looks in like the query of Power BI. You can look how it looks in OData. You can, of course, write your own things, and you can adapt what is existing already. So take a look at that if this is something you want to do stuff with. Take a look at all the sample reports that Microsoft is providing. Because in summary, there are many different ways that you can show different kinds of data you have in Azure DevOps. If you just want to mostly look at work items and a bit of pipelines as well, but if you mostly want to look at work items, you want to see the current state, you want to share it within just your team or maybe just your stakeholders, use the widgets on the DevOps dashboard. They're very easy to put together, even if people are not that tech savvy. They look good. You can change the colors if you don't like the colors they automatically give you. So, but you get a very basic, very nice overview, mostly of the current state, although you can look a bit back in the past. If you want to dive a bit deeper into just work items, then you can also use the data connector with Power BI. You have like all these different options. You can look at the bugs, you can look at the work items, you can look at the other things, and you can either just look at the current state or look back maximum a year in the past. But then you just have these snapshots of a month. And what we did is we looked at the work items over the past 26 weeks, which snapshots of every week. But if you want to do like the most complex things and you want to have to say everything, you want to have a say in everything, go to use the OData queries, go either with Power BI or put a database in between, which is when I am gonna use this for my own environment at work, I'll probably put a database in between. I'll just load the data every X times and put it in a database, so I have some control on how much data is kept, because I don't want to get the data live from my source every time. I just want to have some say in how long it keeps and not be able to go back as long as Azure DevOps want me to look back. And also, if I change the project, I want to be able to have that data as well, instead of everything breaking because I changed something. Also, you can look at way more complex things. You can make way more complex graphs, use many different ways of like crossing your data. And it's very, very flexible. And you can create like tiny queries with lots of aggregations in the query itself, or you can just load like semi-raw data in your database. That is the thing, like if you want to share something broader into your organization, if you want to combine things over different like DevOps organizations, over different projects, that's really the route I would recommend that you go.